In the years after Mary Baker Eddy left Lynn for Boston, her 8 Broad Street home was sold, then resold. At one point, to clear the site for a new branch church, her former home was marked for demolition. That was not as Mrs. Eddy wished. She wrote her students, "Let the house stand for the good it has done. Maybe in future years you will be glad to come and look upon it." Finally, saved by the Mother Church, the historic house survived as neighboring houses disappeared. Over the years, rooms had been altered, staircases moved, doorways walled in, new doorways added. Its back porch remodeled, its clapboards and trim repainted a dignified gray. In 2006, Longyear Museum acquired it and set about returning her home to how it would have looked to Mrs. Eddy. With each step in this complex multi-year project, Longyear's historic house group were guided by one thought: the restored house would tell us much more about the woman who once lived here.
We're doing all of this work on the house so that our visitors can better appreciate the home in which Mrs. Eddy lived and worked. Longyear staff has been able to work with a team of preservation specialists. And together, we've been peeling back the layers to discover the house Mary Baker Eddy would have known when she lived here from 1875 to 1882.
Peeling back the exterior layers with care and skill, a century's buildup of paint was being stripped to bare wood.
As we look at the exterior, we're first removing elements. So we're taking off the paint, we're taking off clapboards that need to be repaired, we're making some changes in doors and windows to put back the configuration that once was here originally.
The back of the house in the 1870s looked nothing like this.
There was always a porch here, but it had been completely rebuilt over the years. And so what we did was to take down that 20th century porch and reconstruct one much closer to what we think the original one looked like.
Now the team could recreate the upper deck where Mrs. Eddy climbed through a window to care for her flowers. An addition with a visitor entrance, handicapped access, and a lift to accessible restrooms called for excavation and new construction.
This whole section is where the addition is coming in. They've actually protected that. We have a hurricane potentially coming in tomorrow, so we wanted to make sure that the surface was protected. And here's where the excavation will be occurring as well for the addition that comes on the side of the building at this location.
As you can see, we've uncovered the existing stone rubble foundation wall. Once that underpinning concrete is in place, then we can dig out all of the soil, do the footings, do the walls, do the slab.
The floor in the basement throughout the whole building, as well as the floor in the vestibule, was just poured this morning.
What's taking shape is a glass-enclosed vestibule where Longyear can roll out a welcome mat for guests to this house.
Yeah, we're getting very close.
Starting with bare wood, new clapboards, stripped and sanded details, the painting crew restored the carefully researched true colors of the late 19th century that would have met Mrs. Eddy's eyes.
Every window was removed. There were plywood panels put in place, and these were restored off-site and were painted the historic colors. And then storm windows were added, low-profile storm windows. So it's terrific now to see the original paint scheme here. These paired brackets with all the nice details up at the corners. The window heads over the main windows in the main block here.
With interior walls stripped, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, plasterers, window installers worked in an orchestrated schedule to reconstruct the original floor plan. A major project involved the staircases, front and back.
Over the years in the house, this stair had actually been turned 90 degrees. So part of our effort now, when all of the demolition and everything is completed, we're going to take and rotate the stairs back to its original location. This is really a significant effort in the house to recreate what was here when Mrs. Eddy was in the home.
And the biggest change in the front stair then was going from the second floor to the third floor. And now when you walk up these stairs into this hall, you understand that this is a place where you could live, where somebody had lived before, and this is where Mrs. Eddy finished her book.
After extensive reconstruction, painters and paper hangers applied the finishing touches.
We've come a long way. We're actually into a lot of our finishes. Much of our plaster work has been completed. We've done our prime painting. We're into a lot of our finish painting, and we're getting involved with the real fine details in the house.
Now it was up to Longyear's historians, curators, and exhibit designers to tell the story of this house where history was written.
With the completion of the interior restoration, it's time now to turn our attention to the creation and installation of the exhibits for this area. And of course, key to that is what happened in this house. Why is it so important? Why are we preserving it? Well, it is the task of the exhibits to communicate what happened here and also what it means for us today. To communicate the depth, the hard work, the self-renunciation, and the victories that Mary Baker Eddy experienced while living in this house.
After 4 years of coordinated restoration work, visitors to 8 Broad Street can now walk through the very rooms where Asa Gilbert and Mary Baker Eddy married, where the couple ate their meals together, where their meals were cooked and the dishes washed. Stand in the first floor parlor where Mrs. Eddy taught, preached, and formed her church, guided the deliberations of the Christian Scientists Association, chartered the Massachusetts Metaphysical College, and conducted its initial classes. And on the 3rd floor, step into the little study where she wrote the final pages of Science and Health, published the history-making 1st edition, and wrote and published the 2nd and 3rd editions. The story of Mary Baker Eddy and the foundational years of the Christian Science movement comes to life in the setting of her house on Broad Street, restored.